All right, real excited to have my next guest back on Sports Card Nation. It's been, frankly, too long. That's my fault. He was last on 14 months ago. Like I said, way too long. I'm going to fall on the sword there. And I've gotten to work with him on Hobby Hotline, so it doesn't feel like 14 months, but for this show it has. And it's been too long, and he's back again. Again, I always say a man that needs no introduction, hobby icon. I'm proud and privileged to call him a friend, Dr. James Beckett. Welcome back after 14 months. Too long.
Thank you for having me, John. I'm shocked if it's been 14 months because
I know.
I feel like we're crossing paths every month.
Yeah, I checked because I was curious too. I knew it was a while. I didn't realize it was that long. So shame on me for doing that, and it wasn't done intentionally. So I apologize. And
the shocking thing is, I apparently have been more aggressive than you because you've been on my show a couple of times since then. So
yeah, I know. That's what way to make me feel even worse than I already do. But yeah, you're here, and glad to have you. And I promise this, it won't be before we do it again. It won't be 14 months.
okay.
I'll make that promise. So, the hobby right now, I don't have to tell you, it's really an inferno is a term I use. It's been, we've seen it go from one thing to the next. But recently, and I know you said this on your show, Sports Card Insights, some recent auctions have kind of fell short of, let's call it, expectations, if you will. Still brought, a decent amount of value, but compared to some previous levels we've seen, some of those prices fell a little short, and we've seen others still break records as well at the same time. And so the question I get, I'm sure you get it a lot, I get it a lot, is when things like that happen, everyone asks me, John, is this the correction you and other content creators talk about on their shows? And and then there's others that say, Dr. Jim, that the correction isn't started; it's been ongoing. That we're in the middle of it. So I guess, do you fall on either of those points, or maybe even something completely different?
Well, given three choices for the future, obviously everybody would love to have a straight bull market across the board, but that doesn't happen in anything. So that's not going to happen. We actually had that for some period of 2020. The downside, the opposite of that, is a straight bull market. Everything's going down. That's happened in the stock market at times when there've been things coming up, and nobody wants that. And I don't believe that'll happen either. What we have now is a mixed market where some things are going up, some things are going down, some things are staying the same. And we may be on the same page about this. If this flushes out some day traders, I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I think the collectors, the dealers, that are people that are in this industry to stay, there ought to be some advantage of sinking roots and not being too upset with daily or weekly ups and downs. Everything doesn't need to go up every month. So I think what we're having and what we're going to have, which means people are considering alternatives. When something gets really high priced, they think, well, gee, instead of buying that, I'm going to buy this. If they leave the industry, you got a problem, I got a problem, and no, it's not good riddance because we'd love to have everybody in the hobby, but not everybody gets it. So.
Yeah, and that flux always changes. We have new people coming in, some leave, some unfortunately we've talked about with morbidity. Some people pass away and leave in that terms. But I think the real risk is if we have a mass exodus. I think that's where what we don't really want to see. I think that's people talk about a crash. I don't believe we're going to see a crash. So I don't even make that argument. But for even to entertain a crash or the bottom falling out, however the pundits want to word it, I think I think that only would happen with a mass exodus of people who are transacting in the hobby and keeping that that money flowing. I don't foresee that occurring, and like you said, I think we're seeing the mixed market, which, like you said, I think that's also healthy too. If everything keeps going up, that's when you tend to sometimes lose people. I can tell you just from scouring social media, you see a lot of people, I can't afford this hobby anymore. I really have to think about what I'm doing. Now, my answer to those folks is there's other ways the hobby. I used to open a lot more wax than I do currently, and so I pivoted to more buying singles or collections, and that. So there's always an alternative to what you're doing and still be in the hobby. I think sort of I'm taking my ball and going home. It's going kind of the easy way out, and maybe even if I be so bold to say it, sort of the lazy way of thinking, and I don't like you. I'm an advocate. I want people to enjoy the hobby, come on aboard, whether you came on yesterday or 40 years ago, makes no difference to me. We don't get a pension plan, at least I don't. And, I think we're seeing, some of that. And I hope people don't leave. I never want to see, whenever I see someone say I'm getting out, there's a part of me that feels sort of bad or sad when I see those posts.
Well, John, you've made comments, you're a man of opinions, and basically there are people that are new to the industry. We want to be welcoming to them, but we could talk about corrections or crashes or major adjustments. If someone can show me that somebody that got their stuff 2 or 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, show me some of those people that lost money. Most of the people that lose money are people that have held things for less than a year.
Yeah.
They bought higher, sold lower. So show me somebody who's been around for a while. Again, there's an advantage to being in this hobby for a long time. But there have been a bunch of people that have made a lot of money with flipping stuff in the last 12 months. But sure thing. So.
Yeah. And there's people that don't look so kindly upon those folks. I'm sort of, hey, this is America. If you bought it outright, you did it the right way, and nothing is illegal there, then you can sell it. You can buy it Monday and sell it Tuesday. Someone else may not be fond of that, but I wouldn't call myself a flipper, but I've sold things rather quickly after purchasing them the same too. And then I've bought something and kept it for 20 years and sold it 20 years later as well. I think we probably both can fall into that category too. So, to each their own. I don't really, I don't want to make it West Side Story where you're like on one side or the other, and we got to, it's a gang or turf war. I think there's different ways to do this. I know it's cliche. As long as you're doing it legally, you're not cheating anyone or doing anything underhanded, then enjoy the hobby.
Well, if I were doing price guides now, which I'm not, I'm retired. I'm a retired podcaster. But I would be looking at the mix, John, of fixed price versus auction, because that's how much stuff is coming out, and then how is it being placed into the market with fixed price or with auction. Auction suggests confidence that there'll be multiple bidders. It'll bid something up. Fixed price can mean, I'm not sure what it's going to go for in an auction. I better put my high price in there and see if one person will pay it. So that would be what I'd be looking at. I'd be looking at the mix of auction and fixed price. And if that's
and something that really didn't exist when you were in the price guide genre is now we see the rise of fractional share companies too, that sort of play into the equation what these are going for, because if 100 people buy in at whatever price, that's technically what the card is sold for, and then those companies turn around and get offers that usually are more than the IPO price, and so then that becomes sort of the standard. So there's so many different platforms now that even when you were with Beckett, that you didn't, you had your hands full with gathering all this information. I think it's even more difficult now to do the price guide landscape, just because there's so many data fields and point of sales from auctions and from eBay to auction houses to fractional shares to private sales, even what we see PWCC, like them or not like them. I have an opinion there. I'll just keep to myself on during this conversation, but some of their recent sales have broke those barriers, those records. And so you got all these sales happening in so many different spots. I would think as a price guy, you'd almost have to have folks just focus. Your area is this, gather all this intel and kind of come back, and let's all come back and put this together.
Well, as usual, John, you stimulate my juices for responding to that, because I'm largely in agreement. But I really think that if there are too many private sales in this industry, I really don't think that's good. The emphasis private sale used to mean back in the day meant you and I made a deal and it was private. Now, private sale is super ultra publicized.
That's true.
Our private sale, and I'm going to show you my check, and I'm going to tout it. So it's a different kind of private sale, and too much of that I don't think is good. I like it being on the open market. Everybody can see what's there. And secondly, not necessarily a danger sign, but another indicator that would be a leading indicator to me is if the fractionals are winning too much of the good stuff. That's not as healthy as if there's a perception that they're always paying a lot more. Well, it's going to come back and bite them. People will say, wait a minute, they're overpaying, and then I've got to buy shares at an overpriced. So it's not healthy.
And that pendulum,
they're winning too much. And I think they are right now, but
that pendulum could swing the other way. They could buy something and lose, and that
underwater. There's a few that are underwater. Some of the things they bought are underwater in terms of less valuable than what they paid, but most of them are up. I grant you that.
Yeah. I dabble in it, and I almost do it more for the content portion, just to kind of talk about what I've done and how it's doing, that sort of thing. But I know there's other people that are doing way more and going in quite heavily, and so that's the risk you take. It could be boom or bust depending on how that plays out. And I think you're right. With these companies popping up, it's sort of competitive. I want to buy that car. It becomes sort of a bidding war, and maybe, like you said, that's where the overpaying comes in. And it sort of when all the dust settles, like, man, we got the card, but did we get it right? You know what I mean? And so that's when that danger can be in play. So we'll see. They're in there. I know fractionals are not necessarily new, but in this form, they're fairly new. And so it'll be interesting to see, long term, do they all last, like you said, and who's generally looked at as sort of the front runner, if you will, or the leader in that niche. And it's too early. I think it's too early to do that yet, but we'll see how that plays out.
I think
go ahead.
NFTs and fractionals, they're still in the honeymoon period.
Yeah,
there a lot of glow that this thing is really working and all that stuff. But as the years go by, we'll see. Whether it works, but there's a lot of enthusiasm early on. It's a honeymoon.
Yeah. Speaking of NFTs, that's one thing I wanted to broach with you, being in the industry a long time. I've been in it a long time. I've said on my show, maybe you've heard me, NFT, it either exists or it doesn't exist, sort of cut and dry. Now, true, to be fully transparent, I did try to buy a few packs of the recent Topps NFT. That sort of was clunky and wonky. So I don't know if that was the Lord above telling me don't do it. It didn't make it happen. So I didn't get in, but I also want to be very honest and say I did try to buy some after saying I'm not an NFT guy. And I don't think my opinions changed. I just sort of wanted to get in on the initial release of it. I didn't. Your thoughts? Is that something that interests you at all? Obviously, it interests you being in the hobby and being a content creator. But is it something you've done maybe already, or something you consider doing at some point?
First of all, just to respond to your theological statement, you can't give God the blame unless you're going to give God the credit. So
Yeah,
either way, it just depends on what your perspective is. But with NFTs, it's I don't think I'm not their intended market. I have a nice collection of real cards that I really enjoy. And so I don't think I'm their intended market, other than the fact that I have investable funds, which I guess they would think that
yeah,
would be good. But I think I understand it, and I think there's a dynamic element there. We're now seeing, with more than one NFT group, we're seeing that there's different ways to do it and to inject an experience aspect, an artistic aspect, some customization features. I Brian Gray says, we're not in the ninth inning with collecting. We're not in the eighth. We're not in the seventh. I think we're in the first inning with NFTs. If we're in the second inning with fractionals. Breaking, we're in the fifth or sixth inning. I mean, that's something that's maturing, accepted. But those are all interesting innovations that have come about in the last 10 years.
Can you see, something I thought about? Can you see NFTs obviously are red hot right now? Almost anything new right now just sort of comes out of the gate like a purebred horse and just, gallops through the finish line. Can you see maybe even years from now, people really sort of the light bulb goes on and they say, really, what do I have here? And maybe we see that sort of, I don't want to say crash. I know I keep using that word but maybe sort of the bottom maybe falls out of that. And people say, you know what? And at the end of the day, what do I really have is sort of just a picture on my phone or a video clip. I don't really, that doesn't do it for me in the same sense as a genuine card. Even in the fractional space, you're buying into a share. The card is real. You may never hold it in your hand real, but it does exist. Yeah, you think there's a risk there with NFT that maybe the light bulb goes on years from now. People say it was fun while it lasted, but it just doesn't do it for me now.
I don't want to put the black spot on the NFTs. I really think that what physical card collecting has going for it, as we talked about in the ups and downs of the market, is there's a lot of history. And so, you talk about a correction or a crash or something. If physical cards dropped in half overnight, there would be a lot of people who would panic, but there are a bunch of people who would say, oh my goodness, now I can buy some more stuff at a more affordable price. Yeah. I'm not sure that would happen with NFTs. If NFTs across the board dropped in half, I don't know that there'd be a run to get if there would be, is it to get the scarce ones or the more noteworthy ones? I mean, I don't. So the lack of history is the exciting aspect, but it's also the daunting aspect that there's no track record to say that they're going to continue to be worth more. If the category, and here's another problem, is that if the category of NFTs keeps going strong, then there's going to be potentially an oversupply because there's no rule. I mean, people can just do some more, and so money going into that category could get really sucked up on the new releases, where they work toward the vintage market, they work toward these other sports, and so there are a lot of people a lot of confidence in NFTs, but like I said, the lack of history and the potential for a future explosion in supply that may overwhelm the demand. I just don't know. So I'm gonna watch, John. I'm not gonna pontificate any more than I already just did. That I don't know, and I'm gonna observe, but I don't think I'm gonna be an NFT investor, and not even an NFT collector.
Yeah. And I think you made a great point. It's a double-edged sword. Like you said, that lack of provenance and history is, it's got people interested, and it's got, sort of the folks like us that have been in this a while say, hey, if I can't really hold it, what am I really getting? And I think you're seeing both sides of that. And again, it's going to be like you just said. I'm going to be definitely watching. I think that one foray I tried to make in, I think is going to be the only one. I think that was again maybe a sign that it shouldn't be for me. As someone who sort of talked about not being that sort of guy, but I think too some of the NFT popularity. Tell me what you think of this, Dr. Jim. Has come from people not being able to get wax in the same vein that they used to. Not, with shelves being cleared off, they're not being able to get wax in the same vein, and they're opening virtual packs in a sense with these NFTs. Do you think that's any success is due to maybe that reason?
It's that'd be a factor. I don't know that's a huge factor, but it's a factor. This just like not being able to get your cards back from the major grading companies in a timely manner. That's another thing. You don't have to grade NFTs. You get when you
not yet. That's the next. The next thing coming. So
probably not.
The way the hobbies, I don't know, but yeah, I don't see that. But you never know. And now we got people pre-grading and doing that too. So speaking of Topps and their NFTs, they went public for the first time, I believe, in 14 years. They've been there before. They're back again through a SPAC. I'm a guy that dabbles. I don't want to even say dabbles. I've done stocks probably for 20 years. I said on my show I bought some Ford stock years ago when they were struggling. I got them cheap, and they sort of rebounded, and those stocks were worth more now. They've sort of stayed at the same level. So I decided I was going to basically sell my Ford stocks and buy into Mudrick Capital, which is the SPAC company at Topps. And so basically I traded all my Ford stock for Mudrick Capital to dabble in that. I think, I'm not Kramer by any stretch of imagination, but I think that, getting in early with the launch of the NFTs, I think that stock has a chance to go up from its initial prices. It has. It's went up a few dollars here and there, not skyrocketing as of yet, but I think the potential is there. I you don't have to answer this. This is a nosy question, but is it something you look at or do, or what do your thoughts on when a company goes public like that? Is it pique your interest to do anything like that?
It does. I mean, I have a close friend that's been is a CEO of a SPAC of a company, and I can't say much about it, but other than I've been able to hear on the inside what it is, and I also was an early investor in a different SPAC, and I can just say, I mean, it's after it went to market and it immediately went up. Again, I'm not giving prophecy, but I'm just saying it went up, and it went up significantly. And then I said, but I'm in it for the long haul. And then all of a sudden, after the newness of the SPAC, about a year later, it started to drift. And it went down and went way down, because at some point, the SPAC is in the rearview mirror, and you're left with a public company, and they're looking at the operating performance of that company and not the glamour of the SPAC that, oh, this is a new public company. And so after a year and a half, it dropped significantly, and now it's built back up because underlying it is a decent company, but it had an extra glow from the spotlight of the SPAC. And so Topps is going to get that, and this NFT, even the fact that it wasn't probably very well executed, it's still news. As a public company, you're getting out there. So SPACs are not sure things either. They're a quick and sort of easier way for a company to go public. And Topps was probably an excellent candidate for it because they have an interesting story.
Yeah, and like you said, I think timing definitely comes into play when you're talking SPAC, and then when the SPAC kind of recedes from that, and you have the company standing alone. You got the reports that you need to see how the company's doing, and timing can be, the way I looked at it too. I'll be honest. I bought Ford when it was like $3 a share, really in trouble. And when I wound up basically selling it and then putting it was around $12. So I made $9 a share. That was really what the Mudrick Capital stock was at 12. So I basically, the way I look at it, I got $3 a share, if you will, as far as into the Mudrick IPO, if you will. And so take a flyer, see what it does. Like you said, I think timing might be something where you have to look at it like, is it time to now? It's fun to own it, but is it time to sort of maybe, cash out, at this point or not? And who's this? It's like you said, it's all speculation. Who knows? I know they profited what $90 million according to the and that's before NFTs, and so we'll see. But again, things can change. We've seen this hobby pivot rather quickly, and so that can happen on any level. So,
well, it's like you say, the speculative aspect is that there's a baked in thought that these NFTs are going to be a big winner, and in a year we're going to know whether NFTs are here to stay, whether they're a growing segment of the business or they're a small fringe part of the business.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I always say on my show, I know you've talked about the hobby now, like from one week to the next. I mean, you can do like you do your show daily, and you never run out of, at this point, you never, between your history yourself and just what's going on in the current market, you'll never run out of material. And years ago, I remember this. You could go away for a week and come back and not miss too much. And now that's not the case anymore. So speaking of grading, I know we're coming down the wire here. We've seen PSA kind of put a pause on their lower levels, if you will. It's come out recently. I don't know if it's true. It looks like it's on official PSA paperwork that when they do get back to full steam, that the one of the lower levels is going to be sort of $100 minimum. Some people are brisk, a little prickly about that. I was hoping it wouldn't be that high myself as well. I mean, how do you now we got a bunch of new companies. I can't even name them all. Just all these startup grading companies that are trying to launch. And I mean, so a lot of people jumping into the pool, and maybe with feeling that there's an opening. How do you see this? I mean, again, you got to put on sort of your fortune teller hat, and it's all speculation. I mean, where do you see this? How do you see this really playing out?
Well, I'm biased.
Yeah.
I'm my old company. I mean, I would hope they would make good decisions and benefit from this, but they're not the only game in town. But they have a chance to benefit from PSA changing. PSA is the volume market leader. If they do price changes in the way they price their product, then the other grading companies they can copy it, or they can, which I certainly hope my old company doesn't copy them, but they would respond in a manner that says that's I don't know, now say welcoming to all cards, but I mean, you shouldn't say, hey, you can't get this graded, or you got to pay $100 to get this card graded. That's a sentimental card, but I'm not in charge.
Yeah.
I'm not in charge. So I think anytime the market leader sneezes or coughs, there are ripple effects. And so I'm hoping that Jeremy and the my buddies over at BBG, Beckett Media, are going to respond in a way that's good for the industry.
Yeah.
Industry. If it's good for the industry, then everybody's going to do fine.
Now I'm gonna put you on the spot with a question. Like, do you have any input? Will they ever ask, "Hey, what do you think, Dr. Beckett?" Or can you go to them and say, "Hey, what's going on? Do you ever think of maybe this? Do you have those sort of dialogue at all anymore, or
Actually, I do, and it's kind of fun because I'm not in charge. I'm not the owner. Not really in the org chart, but I really like the guys, the people that are over there, and so yeah, they ask my opinion about stuff. I won't say a lot, but I mean it's regular, and I got to say sometimes they listen to me.
Yeah.
I mean, again, they have different ownership now, different approaches of what they want to do. And so my advice, John, is usually, here's what I would do if in my perception of the situation, but I used to know everything that was going on in the company, and it was my company kind of, and I'd say, this is what we need to do. But I don't know what's going on with the parent company and all that stuff, to where what considerations they have. So I just couch any advice I give in that light. Is, from where I'm sitting, here are some concerns, and I'm sure it's always, they don't say, well, that's terrible what you said. They don't say that. They say, well, thanks. I don't know if we can pull that off, or I don't know if we'll be allowed to do that, or I think that's that's because I was always one of trying to get market share, to make it a little cheaper, to be welcoming to the collectors and the dealers to use our service and make a good profit, but not squeeze the last dollar out. And I'm not saying they're trying to do that, but in this market being so hot, there's a tendency, hey, you need increased prices and nobody's gonna care. I don't think that's the case. I think people are frustrated, probably with all the grading companies.
Yeah.
Probably with all of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's across the board. I don't think it's one over. I think it's just in general. You got people who don't grade that just say, "See, this is what we're talking about." You got the people who do grade that say, "Man, this is getting tough. I want my stuff back. It's getting way too expensive." So, it depends who you talk to and I guess what day it is. But well, hopefully, they take some of your insight and expertise, and you've been in this hobby a long time. You've been in that building in a sense, and that started with your leadership. So it's not coming from an empty chair by any stretch.
Really tough job, and so I'm not trying to sharpshoot them. It's really tough. It's way more complicated. The price guide, the publishing aspect, the online price guide, and the grading. It's just, and they've got so many irons in the fire. So they're doing the best they can, and like I said, it's like your wife. You tell your wife, "I heard what you said," and she says, "Well, I don't think you were listening." "No, but I heard what you said." "Yeah, but you weren't listening." And all that means is somebody just says, "Hey, it's, I don't see it that way," or "Thanks for your perspective." And, but it's hard to be in somebody else's moccasins, John. That's why it's a lot of the criticism that I hear on the various shows across the board. I feel like they don't have the whole story.
Yeah.
Panini, I've got friends over there. They're not like trying to do a bad job or something. It's tough. Business is tough. Even in a bull market, it's tough. So.
Yeah. No, I agree. You only know what you know. It's all, even I've been on my show and have said things, and I'm not in the building. I only can go on just like everyone else, sort of what you know or what you see. And there's more. It's a bigger picture there that you're not getting. And so I always try to. I don't really go after a person or an individual. I just maybe talk about a product or a decision and that sort of thing, or just, and talk about it on that level. So speaking of hearing, my wife tells me I have selective hearing. So I don't know if that's what you meant, but that's what I've been told. So
I'm saying people think I heard what you said, but you didn't really hear in the sense that, and my wife is awesome, but she's, I can hear what she says, but what she's really saying. And so Jeremy is not my wife, but when he says something or I say something and he hears it one way, selective hearing, another way to say it.
Yeah.
So, they mean well, and so it's just tricky.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Jim, as always, like I said, been too long to have you back, but glad to have you back. We'll obviously do it again. I'm going to actually get to meet you here in a few weeks.
Yep.
In person, and I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to that, and everyone else down in the DFW area, and counting the days. I go look at my calendar and I say we're one day closer to that, and it's going to be fun and probably be the quickest. I'll be there 3 days. It'll probably be the quickest 3 days in my history, and then it's back to New York. But we'll have fun while we're at it, and I'm looking forward to it. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks, I guess. Everyone,
absolutely.
Yep, check out Dr. Jim's Sports Card Podcast, Sports Card Insights, every day. And he talks a lot less than I do, and it's definitely more consumable. So, Dr. Jim, once again, thank you.
Thanks, John. Keep up the great work.
All right. I appreciate it.